Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hele Ignite. Today is my 9th birthday. Well, this podcast is 9 years old today. And we've got Helen Armstrong, and Helen and I are going to talk about building business cases for human resources. I saw Helen at a conference, and you were excellent at talking about it. And I just feel also it's not just about HR, is it? I think it applies to just about any other system that you were basically applying for, certainly that. But we're just going to focus on HR today. So, Helen, where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Helen Armstrong, or at my website, silvercloudhr.co.uk.
Excellent. So, Helen, business cases. Why do they fail to get approval? And why is it that HR leaders don't get buy-in?
Yes, the question. Shall I start with just a little bit about why I feel I'm qualified to talk about this?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So I'm an HR person by background, but I've always heavily focused on tech and transformation. I tried the days of being a generalist HR person. I'm not very good at things that aren't black and white. I found people quite difficult. So I thought systems and process would be much more up my street. So that's my background. And off the back of that, a lot of what you have to do is get business cases and sign off for new technology, new ways of working. So from quite early on in my HR career, I was involved in doing a lot of that. So Silvercloud, my business, we're a consultancy. So after many years of working in-house in transformation, developed Silvercloud so that we can just do more of this, supporting CPOs, HR directors with their business cases and implementing new ways of working. So yes, I've done a lot of this, and the way I'd position it, I think, is I always talk. You need to talk the CEO language if you're trying to get any business case off. So primarily, what I deal in is HR and payroll tech. So normally, it needs quite a bit of an investment because it's going to be software costs and then implementation costs. So you have to have a really structured business case for that. So it's really important to talk the CEO language, and that doesn't just mean the CEO in terms of the role. It's an acronym for being commercial, emotional, and then operational. So in any business case, you need to really package up all those three things. And obviously, I've gone from being an HR person to now being a CEO myself. So I know how that translates. And it is quite different. I've learned a lot being on the other side of the fence. And it seems quite obvious, but the CEO is only really starting to think about the bottom line. So when we're talking about what we want to do in HR, we've really got to think about what the business is going to get out of it. And depending on what that background of that CEO is, I always think it's important to understand where they've come from. If they're an ex-CFO, they're going to want to know the numbers, but primarily they're going to want to know, how is this going to help me achieve my revenue goals? How does that?
When you say the numbers, you mean revenue goals, but it also it's not just about goals. It could be savings.
Absolutely, yeah. How are they going to hit their numbers, and is that through savings? So there's loads of different ways that you can position that. So it's too easy as an HR person to say, look, I really need this system. We're really inefficient in HR. We need to streamline our processes. This is really going to help us. That doesn't land it. What you need to say is, we lose X many people every year through attrition. Each one of those costs us, half their salary. It equates to this. If I had a system where I could track that and I could reduce even 10% of that, that's what's going to make the savings. So you've got to translate what you need in HR to be what is going to help that CFO hit his numbers, whether it's revenue or savings. And generally with HR and payroll tech, it's savings. It's about being more efficient. But you've got to be able to answer that question. So it leads into the emotional bit, really, which is really getting to understand the personalities that you're dealing with. So where I was always successful in my early career is I'd see it as a bit of a challenge that I was going to get something signed off. You don't do that just by plonking a bit of paper on someone's desk saying, can you read this and sign this off, please? It takes weeks of building that relationship up, finding out who's going to sign that off. When I very first started working in London, I remember my HRD at the time said, and I was, only young then, in my early 20s, he just said, the best bit of advice I can give you is network with everybody here, go for lunch with every single person and learn what they're doing. So if you can do that with your CFO, or even for the person that reports into the CFO, to really understand what is keeping them awake at night. Is it, for me, I'm a consultancy. If I lose consultants, if they leave, I have a big revenue gap because that's lost revenue for me. But it might be, if you're in retail, it's something different. So really understand what is keeping that person awake and how is your business case going to answer that business problem. And it might just be productivity gains. It might be, getting people onboarded quicker. Again, for me as a consultancy, the sooner we can get people up and running and working with clients, the sooner we're going to be generating revenue. So it's really trying to understand just
that also is partly customer experience, isn't it? Because quite often we think of customer experience as being some sort of call center, but actually customer experience is how do we deal with the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. And in an HR world, the customer is often the employee. So we're always in a war for talent, whatever industry you're in. You never want to lose great employees. But if you've got rubbish systems supporting their ways of working, you get a brand new recruit in, they have to deal with bits of paper and, they've come to work, they've been on their phones, listening to music, checking
they're used to using Spotify and Facebook and TikTok.
Yeah,
and they come to work and there's some ancient system they have to use.
Yeah, and that's the first impression of your business. And your competitor's got something really whizzy and they've just come from there and they're like, why did I leave? Like, what is this all about? It is first impressions. So it's employee engagement, but ultimately it can impact the customer as well. Like if you're in retail, you need a good system to help you with your workforce planning, who needs to be where and when. If it's a bank holiday and it's sunny, you might need more people than if it's a bank holiday and it's rainy. Like all those, the tech can support that. So it really does impact everybody. But you need to really understand what is the problem that you're trying to fix and how can HR do that. And one of the, you just got to build those relationships. I think it's too easy just to focus on the bit of paper. And yes, 100% you need to do that, but you've got to get them on sign. You've got to build their trust. People buy from people, even in an HR business case situation. Like they need to know that they can trust you and that you understand it, and that takes time. You've got to build those relationships or learn who to build them through. And then it also goes to the O in the CEO, which is the operational. You've talked the numbers, you've understood the personality and what they need to achieve out of this, but they also need to trust that you can deliver on what you're positioning to them. So you need to be talking with detail, with due diligence. You've done your research, because I know as a CEO, if someone comes to ask for money from me, yeah, it's about the spend, but do I trust that person to deliver it? So you've got to be really thoughtful about how you're going to do it. But that comes last. That comes after all the other stuff that's been spoken about. And that, if you're choosing tech, in my world, it will be, this is how we're going to manage a vendor selection process. This is how we're going to manage data translation, and you've really thought all that through to show how you're actually going to implement it. So your business case needs to have all of those things to make sure that you can.
So what are the key elements that make a strong business case? So of course we're going to put some sort of monetary value in terms of it's going to cost us so much and we're going to get something back. But there must be other things in there as well, which we need to be looking at.
Yeah, and it relates to the strategic goals of the business. So you can't create an HR business case if you don't know what the objectives of the business are. So it has to directly link with that and how you're going to help with those objectives. So that's, if we're going to support a client build their business case, that'll be the first place we start. Tell me what your business strategy is. What is it? How can we help with that? Because everything ultimately has to feed down from that. So that is where you have to start. But there are some really easy ways you can do some calculations for return on investment. We've got to be honest, return on investment has to be part of the business case. You have to have numbers in there. They have to be sensible numbers. It might be something like, if you're outsourcing your recruitment to a recruitment agency, maybe you spend 1.2 million on that. If you can improve some of your internal recruitment and save just 10%, that's £120,000. That's an easy sum. Yeah. And I'd argue you could do a lot more than that. So,
stopping people leave for is, and presenting yourself as the employer of choice in the marketplace is going to have an impact in terms of the reduction in recruitment costs.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a stat that says it costs about half a person's salary to replace them. If you know how many leavers you've got in a year, that's a lot of money that you can, if you can just reduce even a tiny percentage of that, you're going to save, whatever it costs to have a system. So it's those kind of stats that you can really look at. And there's some details on our website you can download to give you some of those examples. And the other thing CEOs and CFOs like is data accuracy. Headcount reporting, I mean, you should be able to do that in this day and age, but the way finance do headcount reporting is often different to how HR do headcount reporting. And if you can go in and understand that that's a problem and you can fix it, they'll be like, okay, yeah, we need this. Like, this is going to help me to do my job as a CEO and a CFO. But data and compliance is a really good way to get a business case.
Is that because they're mixing up people with whole-time or full-time equivalents?
Yeah, they're looking at it in terms of just FTE and like how many people, whereas in HR we're thinking who's on maternity and someone's on secondment, and it's about people heads rather than FTE heads. But even just data as a whole, like if you can save a finance team, it's often the finance teams that end up doing all the reporting for HR because the systems are complex or they're trying to pull multiple systems together to get a report. If you can take that time away from a finance team, and CFO is going to love that. He's going to be like, oh, amazing, I can get my team working on something else that's actually going to improve the business, not trying to provide data for HR. And in this day and age, you should not need any help in pulling reports on your people data. You really shouldn't. You should have a system that can do that at the click of a button. So it's all those things.
And so what other metrics and data points should we be using for your business case?
For your business case, so looking at savings, definitely turnover is a great one. How can you reduce
employee
that?
Turnover.
Employee turnover and what are the costs associated to that. It should be fairly easy to work out what those costs are. That's a brilliant way. So it's people leaving, it's people joining, recruitment costs. If you can reduce the spend to bring people in or reduce the time it takes to recruit. If you've got an internal recruitment team and you can have a new HR system that's going to save 20% of their time on admin, you've potentially got an extra day of a recruitment person to actually do recruitment and get people in quicker, which has a value to it because there'll be less gaps and they'll be able to generate revenue. So it's all those numbers. Onboarding is a great way. So you lose a lot of money as a business trying to onboard people. A good HR system now will be able to do a lot of that for you. It can be getting people trained up before they start. It can be doing all the forms you need online before they start so that they're up and running a lot quicker. That's an easy stat, and you should be able to figure out what that actually saves for a business. And just the admin spend. It's less sexy talking about the efficiencies of admin, but actually working with HR teams that are still in spreadsheets, there is a lot of money that you can save. And actually for a CFO, you're looking at what you can save today, but also for the future. So if you're looking to grow as a business, you don't really want your HR team to keep growing, to keep up with the need. And if you're inefficient, that is ultimately what will happen. You'll just keep adding heads and heads and heads to deal with the admin. Whereas if you've got tech that supports the admin, effectively it should just be automated. So you don't need to add headcount, which is music to any CFO or CEOs, is they don't want to add support staff unnecessarily if tech can do it for them. So all those things.
So we've talked about some of the benefits where it's we're able to say there's a benefit and there's a saving, or what about the sort of like intangible benefits that you can get, and how would you present those to like being the employer of choice in an industry is not something that necessarily has a monetary value to it, but it has a value to the business.
Yeah, and maybe if you might even be able to put a monetary value against it. But I think the first thing is they're appealing to the emotional part of the process of doing this. You've got to have passion when you're talking about it. Like, I love HR and payroll systems. That's so sad. But when you've got someone, I do love other things as well, Kim, not just that. But when you've got someone stood in front of you going, this is why you need to do it. This is what it's going to bring employees. This is what it's going to bring finance. This is what it's going to bring HR. You really get that buy-in, and you can start to get people excited about it themselves. But ultimately, it's the employee engagement. I mean, you've got systems now that, they're almost like social media, and they'll pull groups of people together. It's not just, here's your holiday, like submit your holiday, or, you know, what's the current policy? Can I look it up in the system? There's a lot more to it now. But also we're now moving into, you know, shift swapping for retail and hospitality. There's, you know, all that is automated. You can do it through apps. I can't work today. Can someone else do it? Yeah, I'll pick it up. It's all automated. You're not going through all the process that you used to do. So it's in the employee engagement for that. But also we're now looking at payroll systems that will do pay on demand, or, you know, will pay charities directly from the payroll. There's so much happening in the tech world. There's a lot to get excited about. And obviously we haven't even mentioned AI now. If, you know, the world's about to change with HR systems, the stuff that we're starting to see through the vendors that they're working on, it's going to get really quite exciting.
So in the last 4 minutes, talk to us about AI then.
Talk to us about AI. First of all, we're still talking generative AI, which is chatbots and stuff like that. It's just the touching the surface really of what we're going to be able to do. But in terms of companies and where they need to be, if you're not even on a system yet, you're not anywhere close now to touching AI. So there's the new tech that's being developed that we're going to start seeing coming in. It's just going to add a layer to what we've already got. But actually, the systems that are already out there, they're feeding it into their platforms. So there's going to be AI agents that are going to be running your new starter processes, your leaver processes, you know, doing your monthly reporting for you, helping you with your recruitment. I know there's been some teething problems out there, and, you know, whether it's biased or not. But this is now coming, and we don't even know what's being developed yet. So, you know, I mean, if ever there was a business case to get a system, it's now. You're not going to be able to benefit from any of that stuff if you're still working on spreadsheets. And we talk to lots of big enterprise businesses that are still on spreadsheets that won't be able to have any of this stuff. But again, our employees are used to doing this stuff now in their personal lives. They're all on ChatGPT, that whether you as a business or not, you want them using ChatGPT, they will be. So they're going to want to interact with a system that they don't need to phone up HR to answer a query. They're going to want to talk to a chatbot. It's just become part of our lives now. So we need to think about how we, you know, encourage businesses to invest so that our employees have access to that stuff. And it's, you know, it's answering queries that HR won't need to answer anymore. It'll all be automated. So
it's back to the allowing the team to concentrate on some of the high value stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, when I deal with Vodafone from my mobile, the first thing I do is I talk to a chatbot, and in most cases it will sort it out. And then you go and talk to a human if you can't. And it's the same if you're trying to deal with an HR or payroll department.
Yeah, and our employees will want to do the same. They won't want to have to email and wait for an answer in 24 hours to a simple holiday entitlement question, or, you know, what's the sick pay policy? They should be able to do that now through AI. And of course, it's got to be a secure way of doing that.
Yes. Because we can't be uploading the employees' data into ChatGPT. We have to have it's got to be within the system, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what the system providers are all building now. So it's there. It's there in most of them already, and they've only just started. So it is going to be really exciting.
So, what do you have any use cases at all? Examples you give us? You don't need to mention any names.
Yes, I probably can't mention any names, but yeah, lots actually. I mean, I think one of the areas we get rid. I mean, for me personally, I just love going into a business and they've got hardly anything at all, or they're coming off a really basic system, and then you can implement something that's really quite whizzy for them. I think hospitality and retail is a really exciting place where you can save a lot of money right now. So the margins for them are so tiny, you know, with national minimum wage increases. So we've worked with a number of businesses where we've come in and we've been able to completely streamline all their ways of working and put everything online. But it has taken months and months and months of business case talk. And it's only when you've got the use cases like we have to go, no, we've done this already. That really helps with a business case. When it's come from someone that's never done it before, it doesn't have as much impact as when you can say, no, but this is what we did for this retailer and this competitor of yours. And then a CFO and a CEO are going to start to listen to that. But yeah, generally it's efficiencies around recruitment. I mean, for retail, they have a lot of attrition. They have a lot of students coming in. So if you can save even 20% of the admin for that, you know, it has massive numbers attached to it and savings. But all businesses actually. Law firms we do a lot of work with, they've had some real benefits. And again, they're all about people. So it's about recruitment, onboarding, how you can do that better, slicker, quicker. So yeah, lots of examples. It applies to every industry.
Yes. Yeah. Helen, thank you so much for coming on and talking about business cases in HR. It's a fascinating subject. Where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Helen Armstrong, or at silvercloudhr.co.uk.
Thank you so much for this, and it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.